Thank you. Thank you. Once again, I want to wish you a happy new year. And I'm glad we're back on our regular Wednesday night schedule. Amen?
Amen.
On Sunday, I preached a sermon called This Year Can Be the Start of a New Life. And I thought about that this week as I prepared for tonight. And I thought about how the biggest hindrance to ever getting past the past and just moving on has to do with how we deal with things that life has handed us. How do we handle the stuff that people have hurled at us, particularly the hurts that we have endured. All of us have endured hurts. And so in this new series for the new year, I want to teach about handling life's hurts. A lot of this you've heard. Why do I teach it again? Because we still need to hear it again. We need to be reminded of some things. Sometimes we just don't get it the first time around. Some of us don't get it 40 years around. That's the children of Israel. And so, and because, you know, I want to teach about how to handle life hurts, because if we learn to do this well, we learn to handle those hurts that we experience in life well, we will get to that point where we really do experience a new life, where we can move on in life and live life to the fullest as God desires for us to have. In the book of Psalms, we find how to handle life's hurts. We find how to handle it when life is tough. The fact is, life is not all fun and games. Anybody don't know that? We all have problems. We all have difficulties. As a matter of fact, Jesus said it this way in Matthew the 16th chapter and 33rd verse. He said, in this world you will have tribulation. It means you're going to have some difficulties. You're going to have hurts in life. Nobody is exempt to them. So, how do we handle it? Tonight, I want to do two things. I want to start by looking at how we hurt. And then I want to start looking at 6 ways that we usually choose. These are 6 remedies that we usually take right when it comes to our life hurts, and none of them work. Now, why do I want to do that? I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. But let's just look quickly, very quickly. This is very quickly, so you can stay up here for these 3. How do people hurt? Primarily, we hurt 3 ways, and I bet you already know. First of all, we hurt physically. We hurt physically. We have our cuts and our scrapes. We have our bruises and our bumps in life. And some folks live in constant pain. And that's no laughing matter, is it?
No.
I hurt my back about 5 weeks ago. I'm still wearing a back brace. Not brace, but a back support, because there's some constant pain there. It's easing and getting better and stuff. But let me tell you, it ain't fun.
No.
It ain't fun. A real hurt is living in continued pain. I don't know how people do it, actually. And then the second way we hurt is what? We hurt emotionally. That's a pretty color name. You did well. Now, emotional hurts is a little bit more hidden, but it's often harder to deal with than the physical pain is. So how do you deal with emotional hurts? Things like fear and worry and anger and guilt and depression and anxiety and grief. How do you get relief from those things? We need to know how to deal with the emotional hurt. And then the last one is we hurt
Relationally?
Yes, we hurt relationally. And relationally is the most difficult of these 3. I mean, it's the most difficult type of hurt to deal with. When it's that hurt that's been caused by other people. And it's a fact of life that you're going to get hurt by other people. You are. You're going to get hurt by other people. And so you need to learn how to deal with it. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding. Sometimes it's caused by a conflict. Sometimes it's caused by loneliness. Sometimes it's caused by rejection. Sometimes it's caused by misappropriated criticism. There's all kinds of things that will happen that will cause you hurt in your life. But how do you deal with those hurts that other people build into your life? You need to know how to do that. And when you talk about hurts, the place you go is naturally the book of Psalms. Because the book of Psalms has every gambit of emotion that's out there when it comes to hurt. David kind of just spills his guts in the book of Psalms. He just lays it out and says, this is the way I feel. And so in this passage that in the passages we're going to be looking at this evening, I want you to see, we're going to begin looking at 6 ways to handle hurts that don't work. Now I'm only going to do 3 of them tonight, and then the rest of the and then we'll get to the other 3 next week, and then we'll get to some specific hurts, handling specific hurts in our life. But the reason I want us to look at David as the model is that David did all 6 of these. And he found out from experience it didn't work, and we need to find out too. But David does teach us something in the 34th chapter, in the 18th verse. Do I have that one there? Yes. Okay. It says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God says, David is saying, you're never closer to God than when you're hurting. You're never closer to God. Should I say God's never closer to you than when you're hurting? David knew that from personal experience. And that's the bottom line. If you don't take anything else from here, take that one. God is close to you when you're hurting. So what do I need to do? 6 remedies don't work. One of my New Year's resolution is to get you out of here in less than an hour.
Amen.
And so that's why I broke this lesson up in 2 parts, because if I didn't, you wouldn't be out of here in an hour. And so I'm only going to give you the first 3 this week, and we'll give you the other 3 next week. Let's just jump right into it. 6 remedies for hurt that don't work. What is the first one?
Don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. I mean, in other words, don't take the Clint Eastwood approach. You know, I'm tough, so I'll just grin and bear it. That really is ignoring it. And the idea behind that is out of sight, out of mind. If I ignore it, maybe it'll go away. I'll suffer in silence type. I know a lot of queens don't do that anyway. They'll suffer in silence. You know about it. But David says in Psalm 32 and 3, he said, there was a time when I wouldn't admit my sin, but my dishonesty made me miserable and filled my days with frustration. Let me ask you, I want you to ask yourself a question. What are you pretending not to know? What are you pretending not to know? I mean, what are you simply trying to ignore? It may be something that's going on in your relationship with your parents, if you still have them. It may be something going on in a relationship with some children, if you have them. It may be something going on in your relationship with your partner, if you happen to have one, or friends, and I hope you all got some of those. But what are you pretending not to know? You're just saying, I'm just going to know, I'm just not going to say anything. What's going on that should be addressed, that's hurting you, and you just ignore it? We pretend anything happened. Why do we pretend? Because we think if we just ignore it, maybe it'll go away. And yet David said, when I don't admit my hurt, Don't admit when I've messed up. Don't admit my sin. All it does is make me miserable, and it makes me frustrated. So the point is, don't ignore your hurt. Don't ignore your problem, especially a hurt. Here's a good way to tell when you are ignoring a problem, ignoring a hurt. You procrastinate. You procrastinate. And you say things like, one of these days I'm going to go to the dentist. One of these days I'm going to have that surgery doctor told me to have. One of these days I'm going to get some relationship counselor. Or one of these days I'm going to confront so-and-so. Or whatever it is. We always postpone what is painful. That is our tendency. Now, there are a few people who don't in this world, but they're rare, quite frankly. It's a fact of life. It's just human nature. We try to ignore or postpone that which is unpleasant or hurtful. And yet, notice what happened. David says, it made me miserable. And it frustrated me because he was denying her. Because, you know, denying a hurt never heals. It doesn't heal when you deny it. It only makes it worse. Procrastination tends to turn minor problems into major problems. If you had, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but about 2 years ago, I had a decision to do something about a problem. And I tried to put a Band-Aid on it. You ever you just try to put a Band-Aid, you know, with a physical, not a physical Band-Aid, but you just try to put a Band-Aid on a problem. Well, and I put it on for 2 years. Last year I had to really deal with it. And after I dealt with it, if I'd have really dealt with it 2 years ago, in 2014, it would have been behind me. And so here I had all this heartache for 2 years over something I should have just bitten the bullet and did. And it was a lot worse to deal with in 2016 than it was 2014. Does that give you some indication of what I'm saying? You see, postponing pain never solves the pain. The fact is that procrastination turns little stuff into major stuff. And that's what happens when you ignore, you procrastinate, and all you're doing is letting it get worse and worse. We've bought into that lie about time heals everything. Time heals all wounds. The person that came up with that ought to be slapped.
Amen.
You know what? The person who came up with that hadn't spent any time in the doctor's office, have they?
Nope.
Watch the people that come in there who procrastinated and put off their hurt and getting it tended to and see how bad it is. You know, time does not heal everything. What time often does, it festers the problem and make it worse. And it does that because, see, it becomes infected. Your hurt becomes infected when you try to ignore it. And some of you probably have a problem like I did that you've had for years, maybe longer than 2 years, and you're still thinking about it. Time doesn't heal everything. One of the ways we try to handle our hurt, life's hurt, is through ignoring it. Don't ignore the hurt. Amen?
Amen.
Number 2.
Run from
That's right. You must have done some of that. Was that right?
Yeah.
That's why you got that one, huh? You knew that. Yeah. Don't run from it. I tell you, I know. I like to run from problems. I don't want to deal with them. I really don't. And yet, I learned as a pastor, you can't run but so far. And so David said, I learned my lesson. I don't run from it anymore. And he said, I tried it. Believe me, I tried it. If the first way is the Clint Eastwood approach, to pain. This is the Don Knotts approach. You know, have you seen Chicken Little? Whatever they call it. This is the chicken-hearted approach to dealing with it. I mean, you just run from it. Leave, get out, escape, retreat, back off. And you know, we decided, I'm not going to stick around anymore. But listen to what David said in Psalm 55, 6, and 8. I wish I had wings like a dove, I'd fly away and find some rest. And then he says, I'd flee to some refuge from all this stuff. How many of you ever felt like that about something? I have. It's human nature to run from difficulty. It really is. It's just a fact of life. You know what? There is a reason that by law, all doors on public buildings swing out. Did you know that? That's a law. You know why? Because when people panic, they run. If the door swings in, there's going to be a lot of hurt folks. And that's why, by law, all public doors on public buildings have to swing out. Because of human nature. You know, if things get hot, you're going to run. I was in Atlanta the week after Christmas. I had to work at the conference office, and I had to, and traffic was real bad on the interstate. And so I know Atlanta pretty good. So I took back roads. I got off on Pryor Street and went around, and I came right round by where I used to work at the Atlanta Federal Center. And I was driving by and I started laughing because of something that happened. I worked for EPA. We were the first organization into the Atlanta Federal Center when it was first built back in 1996. We moved over from Ralph McGill. We occupied, it's a 23-story building. We had 7 through 16 floors. And, but the building wasn't complete when we moved in. And one day I went out to lunch and I was headed back. And of course, there's people all over, construction workers all over. And I'm walking across the courtyard to go in the building, and all of a sudden, I see every construction worker take off running. Clue! I didn't know what went on, but I turned around and I hauled butt the other way. But it turned out what had happened, they had hit a gas line.
Oh.
And people in the building was coming down and they were having to walk down, and by the time they got down, they were so far up, that gas was in, and they were woozy, you know. Wasn't my problem, I was outside. I found that out later. But what? You escape, right? Isn't that the natural reaction? Even if you don't know what it is, it's to run. Even if you don't know what your problem is, the tendency is to run from it. That's not what it is. And there are all kinds of ways we escape in it. We do it with drugs, we do it with alcohol, we do it with affairs, we do it with TV, we do it with, you name it. We buy things that we don't need. You know, there are many ways to escape. And we're really experts at escaping. Thinking of, we're very creative of thinking of ways to escape. And the only problem is our ways of escaping is sort of like the rides at Six Flags. You stand in line for 2 hours for a 30-second ride. Amen? And the thing that bugs me is that it lets you off exactly where you started. Have you ever noticed that? It lets you off exactly where you started. You haven't made any progress at all. And that's what happens when you run from a problem. Oh, you might get it out of your mind for a little while, but you end up right back where you started. And you still got to deal with it right there. Am I lying?
Amen.
And so you can escape. You always come back to the hurt. And so the problem is you never solve the problem by running from it. In fact, you do just the opposite. If you just face it, let me tell you, if you run from it, you'll face it again in another situation because God wants you to grow from it. And if you don't grow in that particular situation, God will encourage you to learn from it in the next one. Because there will be a next one. And God didn't send it, God ain't causing it, but God knows, like you and I know, there will be another one. And here's the good news, God will be there to encourage you to learn from the next one and move on. If you don't learn from it, if you don't take God's encouragement, you get another opportunity. And here's the bad part about it, and it ain't God doing it. Remember, you have a choice here, whether you deal with it earlier or later. If you don't learn the lesson, guess what? It gets worse. If you don't believe me, ask the children of Israel. You know the story. They walked around the desert for 40 years. Whether it was actually 40 years, 40 just means long enough. In the Bible, 40 just means long enough. I've been to, have any of the rest of you been, anybody been to the Middle East? And you've been there, haven't you? That trip, 11-day walk. From Egypt to where Canaan was 11-day walk. And it took them 40 years. Somebody was running from a problem, wasn't they? Somebody wasn't learning the lesson, was they? And they was going around that. Now, somebody said God made them. No, God didn't make them go. They refused to learn the lesson. And so they kept running, walking around. It wasn't God doing it. We love to blame God for stuff. We do. Because, see, if we blame God, then it ain't our fault. We got no responsibility in it. Just saying. And the reason you need to learn the lesson early on is so that you move on. And if you don't learn it early on, guess what? That little lesson like mine in 2014 become a bigger lesson in 2016. And if I hadn't dealt with it in 2016, I'd still be dealing with it and it'd be worse right now.
Yes.
Amen?
Yeah.
David says, I've learned from experience. Don't ignore it and don't run from it. Number 3.
Okay. Don't hide it.
Don't what?
Don't hide it.
That's right. Don't hide it. I like this one. It ain't good for me, but I like it. This is the person who said, I'm not going to ignore it, I'm not going to run from it, I'm just not going to tell anybody about it. I'll just wear a mask, pretend everything's good. I'll just go masquerade. Well, we're good at masquerading, aren't we? Why do you think they have their Powerball? That's masquerade as well.
Is that the same as don't ask, don't tell?
Well, sort of. Mm-hmm. Look at Psalms 32, 2 and 3. I kept quiet, not saying a word, but my suffering only grew worse. I was overcome with anxiety. The more I thought about it, the more trouble I became. That's what happens when you try to hide it. Don't try to hide it. Have you ever noticed that we hate to admit when we have deep feelings? A couple said, one person said, you're angry. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Really? You know something about this one, don't you? We talked about that earlier, didn't we? We don't like to admit when we're hurt. So we hide our hurt, we wear a mask, and in relationships, people play this little game called Is Something Wrong? Is something wrong? No. Nothing wrong. I can tell something's wrong. No, everything's just hunky-dory, honey. I can tell something's wrong. And then I was like, why don't we just admit it? Sometimes you need to say to that person, yes, something's wrong, you stink. At least you get it out in the open, right? But we don't like to admit it. We hide our hurt. Many of us are quite good at disguising our hurt. And we disguise it with nice things. We disguise it with things we indulge in. Many of us think that if I could just, some of us think if only. have right here, have if only. If only I had this, if only I could do this, if only I could be with this, or whatever, then everything else would be just fine. Everything else would be just fine. Many of us think if I could just get that certain thing, whatever that it is, that fits our fancy or our personality, things would be just fine. And the fact is, possessions never compensate for pain. If only I could have that house. If only I could have that car. Things never, possessions never compensate for pain. I know a lot of people who have everything they want and they're still hurting very deeply. Because hiding the hurt only intensifies. David says, as a result of hiding, I was overcome with anxiety and I became more troubled. You know, that's why at Covenant, we're committed to openness and honesty. Many of you may have seen my note, the pastor note that said, we don't offer easy answers to difficult life questions because we know there are no easy answers to difficult life questions. And here at this church, we work very hard at being with a radical inclusiveness, having an unconditional acceptance, because the fact is we know that nobody is perfect. From the pastor to the newest visitor to everybody in between, nobody is making it all the time.
Amen.
Nobody has got it all together. Okay?
Amen.
And so Covenant is a place for where people are not making it, but who want to grow and are growing. That's what we are here for. If you ever find the perfect church, please don't join it because it will no longer be perfect once you get there. Okay? You ain't perfect, and church congregations are made up of people not perfect. And that's one of the benefits of small group ministries like Glenn's Reading Room or the prayer group. It was so good to be back in prayer with folks tonight on Sunday morning. What's that called? Lighthouse and the choir and places like the media ministry, small group ministry, because it's in that context that we really should be learning that to share with one another and to care with one another and to realize that people hurt. And I'm gonna really start talking to people even in ministries like the media ministry and tell them you need to have something where you all have a time of sharing together to build a bond among your groups. You shouldn't just meet on Sunday and do that job. You ought to be praying for each other. You ought to know what's going on in each other's life. Amen?
Amen.
And so that people know that where you share and you care and you realize other people hurt. Here's the benefit of that. Because when you do that, along the way you find out that basically your problem may be different from my problem, but we have the same roots. And there's a comfort in knowing that you're not that different from other folks that you're around and working with. There's a comfort to me in the intercessory prayer group, sharing with them, like I was sharing with them. But I'm better. I got sick at that funeral. I don't feel bad or anything like that. But I've got this stupid cough that I can't shake right now, and it's and it was just a comfort being in prayer with this evening with folks and sharing with them and then praying with me, knowing that that they're going through that. Some other folks are going through it, and even when you even if they haven't gotten it solved, it's comforting to know that others are going through the same thing you are and can pray with you. And sometimes they'll say a word to you that just brings hope to you, or just makes you feel better. Amen? Or gives you a different perspective that you didn't know, and help you get a long way, and maybe help you deal with that problem. And so And this is especially true when you're hurting. Especially when you're hurting. Because when you're going through a physical pain or emotional pain or relational pain, sometimes just having a conversation with someone is what you need. And revealing your feelings is the beginning of healing. James 5:6 says it this way: confess your faults to one another. You never work on a fault until you first admit it.
Yes.
Is that the premise of 12-step? You don't ever work on it until you it starts with admitting it. Am I right there?
Amen.
Yeah, I'll start there. I'm not that up on 12-step, but some folks are. I love the work they do. It's some of the most Christian work you'll ever see.
Mm-hmm.
I love what it does for people. Just being in that space with other people going through. I mean, that's living the principles of Christ there. I love it. You never work on them until you first admit it. And you have to do it to yourself and with God. And you have to do it with other people. I've said this often. It doesn't mean spilling your gut on Facebook. Or your 200 closest friends. Okay? This needs to be done with as few people or in as confined apartment as you can, with folks that you can trust, who loves you, and have your best interests at heart. When you put it on Facebook, every nut, cook, and cranny is out there and will use it against you. I think Facebook is wonderful. It's a wonderful way for me. I studied the effects of it when Savion first went to the hospital. I didn't have to call all these people. I just posted on Facebook and all the relatives to go see how he was doing and all that. That's wonderful. But this ripping somebody from one pillar to post on Facebook is stupid at its best.
Amen.
Putting your personal hurts on Facebook is stupid.
Yes.
Nothing good comes from that nonsense. Not everybody who reads it has your best interest at heart. Okay? And telling 200 people ain't having your best interest at heart either. Amen?
Amen.
It needs to be done with this, in the confines with people who trust and love you. But having said all that, the act of revealing it, revealing your hurt, revealing your feeling, takes it out of the closet. It's no longer a bugaboo. Revealing your feelings is the beginning of healing. Over the years, I cannot tell you I can't even count the number of times that someone has come to me and they've said, Pastor or Pastor JR or just JR, and then I hear this phrase, I've never told anyone this before. And whenever I hear that phrase, whenever I hear those words at the beginning of a conversation, I know in my heart we're about to experience a breakthrough. Because the very act of telling somebody when you've never told anybody, whether it's me or somebody else, is a release for them to get on with their life. And so David says tonight, and we'll look at 3 more next week. David says tonight, don't what? Don't ignore. Don't what? Don't run from it. And don't hide. It don't work. It don't work. And we'll finish this lesson next week, but until then, hang on to this. Jesus said in John the 8th chapter, 32nd verse, somewhere around there, when you know the truth like we've learned here in Psalms from David, when you know the truth will set you free. You know, on libraries all over the world, they have a partial verse up there. The truth will set you free. No, it won't. It only sets you free if you know it. If you don't know the truth, it won't set you free. You know, I've used that old example that if I had access to your bank account and I put $1,000 in it, if you never looked at your bank account, you didn't know what you had in there, would it help you any? No. And that's the way the truth is. Truth ain't gonna set you free unless you know it. But if you know it, like what we've talked about tonight, it sets you free. It sets you free from hurt. And if you want to be free from discouragement, if you want to be free from hurt, you need to tune into Jesus Christ, and you discover what the songwriter says, I know I can make it. I know I can stand. No matter what may come my way. Even if the hurts of life, the physical hurts of life, the emotional hurts of life, the relational hurts of life are thrown at me, I know I'll make it. Because my life is in his hand. Let's stand and sing. I can make it. I know that I can stand. No matter what may come my way, my life is in your hands. With Jesus,